All right, this is SF Barkast. I'm Jeff Cleary.
I'm Andrew Lauder.
And Andrew, where are we today?
We are at the Zeitgeist.
We've been kind of like waiting to do like Zeitgeist because
Yeah, it's a great place.
you have to. I mean, it is a staple in the mission.
Totally.
But we have to have a good day for it, and a good day means a bright sunny day.
Right.
Because the main attribute of the Zeitgeist is that they have a wonderful beer garden out here.
Exactly. And we couldn't do this place in the shitty dog days of winter when we started this thing. Like, there was no way.
I don't think I've ever been here when it's like cloudy and miserable out, but
Right.
I just assume that there's like nobody here.
No, this place is an all-time classic, though. Just this is where you'll see the real face of what's going on in the mission. A good snapshot.
It's a very tattooed bike messenger-y sort of bar.
Totally.
But I was just like saying that it's wonderful to kind of come here because you and I just went to an A's game.
Right.
And when I'm at an A's game, like I always like look around and I'm very cautious and aware of if there are children around because I have a filthy mouth, as most of our listeners know.
The fuck you say.
But exactly. I can explain theoretical physics, but there's going to be a few fucks and motherfuckers like thrown in the middle. And so, like,
I read your thesis on goddamn motherfucking string theory.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you should read the one about the bitch loving dark matter. But so, like, going from the A's game where I feel like I'm watching what I have to say, especially like, you and I like sports, and like part of sports is like screaming like inappropriate things at people, like, and so I had to keep it clean, like, and screaming like, cut those sideburns, Kevin Youkilis, which is like more confusing than offensive.
Yeah, exactly. Like you really wanted to shout like, hey Euclid, you fat motherfucker, I hope you get cancer.
Exactly.
I hope your brother dies too and his restaurant's closed. But
although I did try to tell him that his brother is a hack chef and his brother has like 4 restaurants in the mission.
Right.
But like one of the things I loved about when we came here, I kind of felt like, okay, so now I don't have to pretend anymore. Like there's no children here at the Zeitgeist beer garden.
Right.
In fact, there are people like rolling joints around us, and like you can just like stand up and scream fuck, and people are like, what is wrong with that guy?
I think they pretty much they make you check your hang-ups and like ability to not say asshole at the door like when you come in. So like,
well. Also, like, although, like, this place, I really like it, especially, like now during a really nice day out. But I've heard some people say bad things about the bartenders here.
Really?
And, like, in the last, like, few years, like, I have not had no problem with the bartenders. The bartenders here are, like, very nice to me. But, like, like 10 or 15 years ago, I remember a lot of people talking shit about the bartenders here, saying that, like, it's hard to get a drink, and, like, if you walk in with a motorcycle helmet, you'll get served faster. And
I mean, that almost sounds like more of a reaction to what was happening to the neighborhood at the time, like
which we will get to. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the things I remember about this bar is like they have their symbol on the front door is sort of it's like a silhouette of a human skull with like bunny ears.
Right, so it's like a Playboy bunny like skull.
It's like a Playboy bunny skeleton kind of thing.
Right.
And it's white on a black door.
Right.
And I remember like 10 or 15 years ago, someone had written on that no.com dicks, which at the time made sense, but also at the time
also wasn't a popular website that I go to.
Right, exactly. But like
it's no.com/dicks.
I remember thinking
.org.
.edu. I remember thinking every time I saw that when I walked in, it's like, no .com dicks, just regular dicks.
Yeah, exactly. Like we don't want any dicks in our fucking Ducati motorcycle riding club that we have here.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I feel like it's kind of like shed that sort of criticism that it's like it used to be kind of like a hard place to go to.
Right.
Where like it just like wasn't very welcoming.
Well, it's sort of. I mean, like I think that if bars were like dogs, like I think like early 2000s Zeitgeist would be like a dog that's threatened. Like it would just be kind of like backed into a corner, going like don't come near me because take your throat out because it just watched 3 other dogs get swallowed up and turned into 4-barrel coffee places. So.
Well, you know what? It's funny that you bring this up because our friend Wally he had a dog, and he tried to take her in here a few times, and they were very adamant about how you cannot have dogs in here. Like, and,
really?
I think it's kind of like that. You know, they have a kitchen here.
Oh, okay.
So like, and but also they have like a backyard. So like, you know, they don't want to be cleaning up dog shit.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, if the dog's like in the dirt,
Right.
like in a beer garden, he's gonna take a dump.
Well, not to be like sort of.
He's like anybody else on 16th and Mission. If he sees some dirt, or he's gonna take a dump.
Right. Well, not to like sort of generalize, but like you know, but I would think that like if you did allow dogs, like the clientele this place attracts probably has dogs, most of them. We'll get a lot of
Look
dogs.
right
and
over
big
there.
dogs.
It's the
There's a dog
first
here
time,
right now.
like I brought this up because in my field of vision, I can see a dog,
Right.
and so now I have no idea, like if they allow dogs here now. But I remember, like
Maybe so.
they were very, very like against having dogs here. I mean, now I see a dog in the beer garden, so
Maybe it's
maybe
like a
things have
customer's
changed.
always right kind of thing. They all said, look, like let us bring our stupid dogs in here, or else we'll turn like you know, I don't know.
They said only the stupid dogs.
Right. We'll all go to delirium, like if you don't like let us have our dogs in there.
Well, I wonder, like, you know, like, I have friends, I don't have a dog myself, but I have friends who have dogs, and they have said that it's really easy to get a service dog license.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, getting a service, like, having a dog become a service dog is as easy as getting, like, a pot
Or like
card.
a handicap parking pass. Or
Right,
something.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like somebody told me, like all you got to do is they go in and say like I have anxiety, and because like you see like these
A dog?
you see these like pugs or these like Yorkies
Right.
that have like that are like registered as service dogs, and you're like, how the fuck is that little insect
Right.
a service dog? And it turns out like someone told me like no, all you got to do is go in and say you have anxiety, and
See, I would
they'll be like,
pissed off.
oh, there you go.
If I were like actually like if I were blind or something like that, and like and like I had to have this like specially trained dog, I would be pissed off that like people were like
Andrew, if
abusing,
you were
like,
blind, how would you fucking know?
That's true. Yeah, I guess. I guess somebody would have to tell me. I couldn't read about it.
Oh, you have a service dog? Let me feel him up and down.
Exactly like.
So, you know, I mean, maybe things change. Like, I honestly, like, I know they have a kitchen here. I am amazed that they allow dogs in the back now.
Well, I mean, it's a big back area, so it's not like it's like butted up next to the kitchen or anything. So, yeah, it seems like it could be all right. But yeah, it's good to hear. But so wait, we didn't say the location of this place. I mean, I figured everybody knows, but like it's Valencia and what, Debose?
Valencia and Debose.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in the shadow of the off ramp from the Skyway.
Yeah, it is. Yes. In fact, like it used to be able to. Maybe we're just sitting in a weird place, but like you used to be able to see like that sort of circular on ramp getting onto like Bay Bridge and 101 South.
Actually, I think the circular on ramp is a little bit further down, but you can see the off ramp from the Skyway that leads into Octavia and Market.
Sort of a Hayes Valley exit, if you will.
I think I'm getting like a contact high over here. Which is like totally
Another like benefit of the Zeitgeist.
You know, if you get high off that, I'm gonna have to charge you.
Exactly.
Hey, you know what? Well, let's take a break. I know
Okay.
this is like an early break, but like I gotta go like scrub
Cough up a lung?
scrub my throat out. I get a little touch of the emphysema.
You get your throat scraped.
Oh, well, that's another thing. Is like when you have a beer garden like this, you are allowed to smoke.
True.
And which is always like I'm gonna fight through this for a second.
Right.
Which is always weird because I remember like as a child going to Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough, and when they outlawed cigarette smoking in the stadium, people were just like, what the fuck? It's an open air stadium. How more ventilated can the earth be?
Right.
But if you have a beer garden like this, I guess it's okay to smoke.
See, like, and this is going to sound like pretentious or like me wanting to brag about my worldly travels, but I went and saw a soccer game, or as they call it in Europe, football, a game in Munich, Germany, for Bayern Munich, and that stadium, huge, massive, new stadium, everything like that, and everybody in there smoking up like all the live long day. Really?
And
I
didn't know the German. I don't know why. I feel like my impression is that the French smoke a lot, but like I didn't think like Germans. Well, I guess like those like Dieter, Sprockets guys like smoke a lot.
Well, I think that like they're sort of so used to being outside with the whole beer garden thing and like that. Maybe they're just like used to like not really paying attention to it, but to smoking laws or whatever. But like you would think that like, okay, yeah, this is an outdoor sort of environment, that there would be like that it wouldn't be that bad. But like being in close proximity to like people like smoking, that many people smoking, like, was pretty horrendous.
Yeah, that's
actually.
the thing. I mean,
there's nowhere you can go. It's not like it's like you're sitting in your seat. Like you can't like
Yeah, I can kind of understand it, even at the Sullivan Stadium thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you're like surrounded by like 4 people who are smoking, you're smoking.
Right.
So I understand,
but anyway,
wow.
we'll be back with more anti-smoking rants from 2 old men coughing.
We'll be right back from the Zeitgeist. And we are back at the Zeitgeist.
We got Jeff a new lung, and we're all set to go.
An iron lung. What was an iron lung?
Oh God! Like you remember in Big
Lebowski?
Lebowski, there was a guy in an iron lung. Like it's like essentially like a big breathing machine, right? Like
it's like a hyperbolic chamber or some shit like that. Is that some like Michael Jackson bullshit?
Maybe. Except I think most people in iron lungs like didn't do it to like so they could live forever. They just did it so they could live another couple days.
Enough about all this high-tech medical talk. Andrew, what do you think about this bar?
It's a classic. Like you can't not like it.
It is a classic. So like they have this huge beer garden in the back, and actually one of the improvements that they've made in the back is that they used to have these porta-johns on the side.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
And as you can imagine, they have all the charm of a porta-john.
Exactly.
And they're gone. So sorry everybody who was like looking forward to that.
Sorry, everyone who enjoys hanging out on construction sites.
Exactly. Anybody who likes like smelling everybody else's shit for the last week.
Ooh, it feels like I'm at Bonnaroo.
So they put in like 2 new restrooms down there, and they're classy.
Yeah.
I mean, at least compared to porta-johns. So
they're at least not made of plastic.
when you walk in, there is a bar, and they have an enormous beer selection there.
And it's a cool look. I mean, like just on its own, if that were it would be a cool bar. There's lots of lots of crazy crap on the walls, lots of signs. Great beer selection. They do pictures, which is nice.
They do pictures. They also have a pool table and
True.
2 pinball games.
Definitely.
And I've been told by pinball aficionados that they're really good pinball games.
Yeah.
And then right over on the next to the pinball games, they have a kitchen where you can get like really good burgers, which we are going to partake in pretty soon.
Sorry, vegetarians.
Sorry, I'm pretty sure because it's the Mission. I'm pretty sure you can get a veggie burger there.
I'm sure
it's
you
just
can.
that you have to like put up with somebody laughing at you.
Right. They'll fry up a portobello mushroom or something for you, I'm sure.
Which brings me to our next subject.
Speaking of food.
Speaking of food.
And crimes against humanity and bullshit.
We should have like a siren where we called it, this is like
Like a drudge siren.
this is the bullshit alert, like siren. Is,
Well,
for
we were,
as long-
we were just talking, was it like maybe last week or the week before, you were mentioning that like any like police officer or politician that like busted somebody for like drug possession in the Mission would be laughed out of like his fucking job because it would be like such a ridiculous thing. I mean, like it's just like it's literally like not seeing the forest for the trees, or like arresting the trees
busting
for the
some,
forest,
like,
or whatever.
busting a hipster in the Mission for coke or pot would just like get you put on the laughable list.
And this what has happened here is not only just as laughable, but I think like it's on an even dumber scale. It's just like one of those things where you can't really believe that it's happened.
And okay, so we should set the stage before I start like telling people who's at fault for something they don't know about.
Killing everybody. Like everyone's like fast forwarding like 10 minutes like down the road.
If you've ever been in the Mission, like you know who Virginia is. She's the tamale lady.
Right.
They've made a movie about her,
Right.
and she's basically one of the most celebrated like Mission personalities. For in the 20 years I've been in San Francisco.
Essentially, like way before the food truck movement, way before like any of that bullshit.
And also, like, so basically she comes around with a cooler and with tamales, and like she comes around like late at night, and it's like one of those like things where like if you live in the mission long enough, like, and she's kind of like a guardian angel,
Right.
you know, where it's like, you know, every time like I'm a little too drunk, I'll see her, and she's like, oh yeah, someone's like looking out for me, like not up there, but maybe down there.
She's like Frank Chu, but like with something useful instead of just mountains of bullshit.
So she goes around to the bars late at night, sells tamales to inebriated like missionites,
Keeps them alive.
keeping them alive.
Who knows how many people would be dry heaving the next day if it wasn't for her?
Here's the real like point about her is that like her food is fantastic.
Right.
Like it's just. It's exactly what you need, especially if you've had like a long night of drinking.
Exactly.
So, they've had like movies about her, and she's a staple. Everybody knows who she is. Recently, she comes to the Zeitgeist all the time.
Yeah, one of her key spots, probably.
Key spots.
Yeah.
And recently, the Zeitgeist posted on their Facebook page that they're not going to allow Virginia, the tamale lady, here anymore because they're getting like basically like, shook down by like the Board of Health.
Right.
And that's where it seems like that's where this is all like stemming from.
Right.
Is that the Board of Health is saying that they can't regulate all of her wares, her product, so therefore they're gonna like, you know, if according to what I read, if something happened, if somebody got sick from one of her tamales, like they could shut down the kitchen for Zeitgeist. And if and for some reason, if the kitchen shuts down, they can't be open. It's like a weird thing where like they have to serve food here.
Like some sort of weird domino theory where it's like, and if the kitchen can't be open, then the mission can't be open. If the mission, everybody's got to leave the city.
This thing, and I don't want to sound like a total libertarian, but like this is like really, it feels like one of those government intervention things where it's like, yeah, you know what, like, I mean, I know like. I'm not saying you should always like turn a blind eye to every single person, but here's somebody who's been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah,
and now it just seems like they're like, hey, well, she needs to have permits and she needs to have like the Board of Health like sign off on where she cooks the food. And she cooks her food in a small like kitchen at her place.
Right.
But also what they're saying, like that's their angle. It's like, oh, this is a public interest sort of like angle. But like really, they want her to like buy a fucking like license.
Yeah.
They're basically like seeing someone doing really well. She's putting her kids through college by selling tamales late at night in the mission, which I think is like absolutely amazing. And basically the city government like saw it and was like, hey, you know what? Like they're gonna like wrap themselves in like, oh, this is a public health issue.
Right.
Like it wasn't a public health issue for the last like 29 years. Now it is. Well, basically what they're saying is we want a cut.
Exactly.
And like, our cut is the price of a fucking permit.
The same sort of bullshit was sort of happening like as the whole food truck started taking off. All of the existing like brick and mortar businesses freaked out because they're like, well, we have to pay all these like these like special fees and like get health get up to health code and everything like that. But like these trucks that like they don't have, and so like they basically forced the state government's hand or whatever like that to like put in all these rules, make everybody get licensed. You can't park in a certain space. Each space has to have its own license. I mean, like, it's just fucking money over money over money, and it's just like, it's
well, this is the thing. It's like
crap.
the food truck industry, like it's like it's really huge in Portland,
right.
and it's really big here. But if you go down to that like SF street food, like little plaza, like you will not have a better meal.
Sure.
It is, and you walk around, and it's all fantastic. Right. So it's basically like, I mean, you hear all these like douchebags talking about how like, oh yeah, well we can't like stifle commerce. So it's like, well, that's exactly what you're doing here.
Right.
You know, like why are you coming down on these people who are like have like a converted RV and now they're making like, burritos or tacos out of it.
Well, and it's funny because like like I think part of like what sort of gave birth to the entire like food truck culture and everything like that is like shows like Anthony Bourdain and stuff like that, where like you constantly see him in like someplace in bumfuck Thailand or whatever like that at some cool looking like midnight street market where like some like poor third world person is like cooking the only thing they know how to make, but it's like the best thing he's ever tasted or whatever. And so like this entire sort of idea of like, oh, you know what, I don't have to go to like a restaurant that's been there for 20 years, like that's that's like quote unquote established to get like a really good meal. I can get something kind of like on the cheap, like from like something like that. But like then as soon as you like introduce like all these like like regulations and like everything like that into it, it kills it because it jacks the price up too much. And then like so the next thing you know, you're paying like $13 for a burrito from a truck, and it's like that's just dumb.
Well, it's like they started with like the really small like the creme brulee cart.
Yeah.
Like the problem was like it wasn't being regulated, and the guy was like selling creme brulees out at Dolores Park.
Right.
And all you had to do is be on his like mailing list, and he just like would send out a blast and say, hey, I'm going to be at Dolores Park. And then they started to try to come down hard on them. Right. And it really didn't feel like a public health issue. It felt like they're like, hey, you know what, like you're making money hand over fist, we want our fucking cut. It's kind of like the although what, I feel like all of this is like really good because eventually it's all going to have to change. It's kind of like the if you talk to any cabbie, and all they will tell you about is like how they hate Lyft and what's the other one with
is Lyft the mustache one?
Lyft is the mustache one.
Okay.
But then there's another one that is only like town cars.
Okay. Right.
It's called Uber.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, we hate all those guys. And it's just like, yeah, well, you know what? There's a market for that because the city didn't want to put out any more medallions because all the cab drivers didn't want to have any more medallions out there.
Right.
And so then it was like
you guys got greedy. And
it was hard as
like now you're fucking paying the price for it.
Like how many times have we told this story over and over again about how hard it was to get a cab at like 2 a.m. and at 16th and Mission, 16th in Valencia, where like it was a ground zero for people looking for cabs. You could never find anybody. Now you have Lyft and Uber like coming and picking people up, and basically they don't have a stranglehold over the free market.
Right.
And then now they're shitting their pants.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I hate to sound like a libertarian, but it's like, why don't you just like let this market happen?
Right.
And it is totally unregulatable.
Yeah.
I just made up a word, but anyway.
That's a perfectly cromulent word.
But one of the problems is it's the cabbies are mad, but really who's mad is like, you know how much it costs to have a medallion in SF? The city gets a boatload of money.
Right.
You can't have just some asshole like driving around giving people rides home. Why not?
Yeah.
Because we need our cut.
Right, exactly. Like
too bad, city government.
The city has to overlook it. You're like, I would hate to get in a car and think that the guy only knows how to drive.
Right.
It's like what else? What else could he possibly need to know that's worth $100,000?
Exactly. And you're like, well, what about a safety issue? It's like, oh yeah, like I really don't want to get into a cab with somebody who owns their own car.
Right. Well, and you know what?
But like the thing is, like, yeah, of course, like they're not gonna like, fuck up.
Right. Well, and also like, I think that that a lot of that is like sort of antiquated thinking because like 30 years ago, you might only get in like a regulation cab because you figure like, okay, like well at least this guy probably had to pass some test or something. He might know where he's going. Well, now everybody's got GPS. Everybody's got like fucking maps and everything. Like sitting right on their dashboard. So like. Half of the cabs I get in, they don't know where they're going either. Like they just, but it takes them 2 seconds to punch it up, and the computer tells them exactly where to turn every 5 minutes. So like, there's absolutely nothing that like the driver needs to know other than how to point the car in the right direction. Like how to use the steering wheel.
I remember like working at Super Shuttle, and like one big like sea change was that Yellow Cab had gotten computers in their cabs.
Right.
And it's like I don't even know. Basically, anybody who is like on Lyft or Uber.
Right.
All you have to do is have a smartphone.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know how if every cab has like computers, but if you ever get in a cab and you see like this sort of like what looks like a computer from like the movie War Games.
Right.
You're just like, oh my god,
Like,
really?
like
That's what you're working off of?
Dial-up modem in his car.
Right.
It's like, that doesn't make any
and
sense.
then they're like, they have the gall, the moxie to give you shit that you
Right.
would like, that want to take some other like form of transportation. It's like, don't you like traveling in a hovercraft from like 1950?
So anyway, the whole thing that's happening in Virginia is bullshit. And like, actually, I read a bit of a follow-up this morning saying that like they've caught a lot of heat for this apparently, and like they're trying to work it out, which basically means they got caught fucking like being assholes, and like now they're gonna backpedal off of it before
Well, they set her up
before people start losing their motherfucking jobs.
Yeah. Well, they said, yeah, exactly. Like, there was a supervisor who, stepped up almost immediately.
Right.
Because he probably is survived a couple of blackout drunk nights because Virginia showed up at the right moment. But the thing is their remedy is they're like, oh, we're gonna set her up with a
temporary license or something.
Not a temporary license, but we'll let her make her tamales in a approved kitchen.
Right.
It's just like, okay, so I'm sure she's very appreciative, but at the same time she's like, well, why can't I just keep doing the things that I've been doing for the last fucking 30 years? It's like, oh no, now I'm sure there's gonna be some strings attached, but whatever. Virginia, we love you. We want you to keep doing this. And if any of our listeners out there see Virginia, you buy a fucking tamale late at night.
Damn it.
I'll pay you back for it later. Or at least Andrew will.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a break. It's time to get a
Are
burger.
we done being cranky old men?
No, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about
we're not done.
More mission crankiness.
Perfect.
Because it seems that the mission is at the sea change once again.
Yeah, boy.
Oh my god, it's so tired.
Every 5 minutes, somebody thinks that they're the fucking Hunter S. Thompson that's going to lead the charge out of out of the mission or into the mission or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, it's every 10 or 15 years, somebody thinks that oh, this neighborhood is totally over, and it's like the same old bullshit you hear every once in a while. I was into that bullshit way back in the first album.
And meanwhile, we're sitting here at the Zeitgeist, probably on a table that I've pissed on at one point, and it's probably never been cleaned. So so there's your changing neighborhood right there.
There you go. I got your neighborhood swinging. All right, this is SF Barkast from the Zeitgeist. All right, and we are back at the Zeitgeist.
The Zeitgeist.
Guess what? I just went and got a beer, and I was taking a photo of the television that had the A's games on it, and there's a sign right below it that says Tamale Lady. And this guy looks at me and goes, "You taking a picture of the Tamale Lady sign?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's kind of shakes his head, and I was like, "Well, it's just because of the whole controversy in the last couple of days." And he's like, "Let me show you." Clearly he's somebody who works at the bar, and I know he's a bartender. If I know, at least here and also in other bars, it's the mission bartenders. They have a circuit where they work a bunch of bars.
So this is investigative journalism.
Accidental investigative journalism. It's if I tripped over the Pentagon Papers.
Yeah.
If the Pentagon Papers were about illegally selling tamales.
He accidentally kicked Deep Throat in his stomach as he was sleeping behind his car.
I'm not gonna put myself up there with Ellsbury or Snowden, but yes, I did a little journalism over here, and I'm letting the people know. Anyway, so this guy showed me the letter that they got from the health department, and basically it was the health department that came down on them and said hey, you know what? If anybody gets sick from the Tamale Lady, then you're gonna that's gonna count against your kitchen license.
Right.
And so I said to him, and said and then you'll be shut down. So I said to him, I was like, well, you know what? Let me just ask you, why, if your kitchen gets shut down, that your bar has to shut down as well? Because that sounds kind of weird. You're not a beer and wine. You have a full liquor license. I think they have a full liquor license. Maybe. I should have turned around and looked to see if they had
Oh, they do.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah.
And he said it's just like the parameters of their liquor license that they have to serve food.
Right.
So, I mean, you totally understand. I mean, dude, this guy was fucking pissed. He looked at me and he said, you know what? I've been fielding calls about this for the last, like, 2 days. I was on the phone with the Chronicle and the Examiner and every blog, you know, and I was just like, he's like a typical, like, Zeitgeist bartender where he's just like, I can't stand having to do anything other than pour drinks and fall down.
Right.
So, there you go. I mean... But I tried to explain to him, I was like, you know what, people aren't mad at Zeitgeist and people aren't mad at the tamale lady. It's just that it sucks that the city government is coming down on you. And he's like, I'm just sick of the whole bullshit.
I'm gonna move this bar to like goddamn Sacramento. Like,
maybe I'll just fucking move it over to Coal Valley where like where everything's so much better.
Which brings us to our next beef. Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know if we have enough time, but we'll tease this a little bit.
Right.
So there's this like essay that's been passed around the blogosphere, and especially in
Uptown Almanacs and the missions, and the
SFists,
right.
and like the Buzz. I think it's on BuzzFeed or something like that. Whatever.
Right.
But basically, there was some guy who moved to the Mission in '92, who is a self-proclaimed gentrifier,
right.
92 gentrifier, who's decided that he's going to move out of the Mission because of the new tech boom douchebags,
millennials,
and then, like, you know, the angle for like all these blogs is that it's a Gen Xer who's like in his, like, you know, early to mid 40s,
right,
bitching about like millennials like being too douchey.
Right.
And to be completely honest, I think he's got a huge beef. His beef is like totally fine with me. All these like young like tech people who work for Google or Yahoo
right.
or Twitter, they're all like they can be completely intolerable.
Yeah.
But the hypocrisy of it is that, like, you know, basically, like, there have been some people on the message board saying, like, well, you know, this is just some guy getting old, where it's like, oh, yeah, well, all my friends are gone, and the neighborhood's not what it used to be, so therefore I'm going to move to a more...
Right. I think what's frustrating about it to me is that, this person is more or less agrees with me. I mean, like, this person is expressing a point that I would like to see made. However, he's doing it so poorly that, like, it makes me sad and angry, because, like, you know, like he's saying that things that I don't think anybody necessarily disagrees with, but he's being such a pompous crybaby about it that, like, it makes it 100 times worse, and makes my, you know, any stance that I have against, like, millennials or Google employees or like that immediately seem not worthwhile, because this guy has taken it upon himself to be such a spokesman for the people.
Well, this is the thing, is that, you know, he is supposedly this Gen Xer, and, you know, as far as like characterizations are concerned, Gen Xers are supposed to be the middle child, or it's a small generation. They don't get a whole lot of attention because the baby boomers before them are like really huge as far as the demographic, and then the millennials after them are really huge as a demographic. But this guy acts like such a fucking baby about, like, you know, his feelings.
Right.
That, like,
well, his precious neighborhood, as if he built it from the ground up, from like this nothing Mexican community into the cool place that he liked. And then, like, a bunch of kids came along and, like, rearranged his lawn furniture or something like that. And so now he's going to, like, chase them off of his yard.
I think his point was that, like, you know, douchebags like these tech millennials are ruining the neighborhood. But guess what? Go back in time and ask some of those Latinos that lived in the Mission when you moved in there.
Right.
I mean, maybe he would say, like, oh, no, I wasn't, like, a douche about it. Because he's got a point that... Like, you know, if it's like Saturday or Sunday and you're at Dolores Park,
right,
and you see some fucking like young like tech idiots, like dressed in costume, like they just like walked off like an LMFAO like video,
Right.
And they're douchebags and they're loudmouths and they're just like. But my whole take is like you don't have to hang out with those assholes.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, it's
well,
like
and you know like you moved to a neighborhood that you thought was like was okay and cool at the time. You know. Whether or not you did anything actively to change it, you can say yes or no, you didn't. But the fact is that it did change. That it went from being like a pretty not shitty neighborhood, but like a very a poor neighborhood of San Francisco that was primarily Latino, and like during the 90s and like first part of like 2000s, it was changed into into a richer. Higher class of people moving in and gentrifying it. And the fact that he admits that he was one of those gentrifiers, but then goes on to say like, yeah, but these new kids don't understand like how to properly gentrify it.
I mean, I agree with them. These new kids are douchebags. But he's basically like throwing up his hands and saying, "Well, I used to live in this neighborhood, and because everybody I know has been priced out, I'm basically not willing to stick around and like do anything to improve the neighborhood." Like he's just basically like dropping back and punting. And if you read the article,
as if everybody was calling for him to stay and fight it out. I mean,
well, that's the thing.
Like, that's the whole supposition that like just immediately makes him a douchebag. Is that like he's anointed himself as like spokesperson for a generation.
Well, that's like the two big like points of hypocrisy that I have with this is if you click in and read the whole article, he's like moving to Coal Valley, and
right.
One of his like big problems is that like the mission is like turning too suburban. It's turning to like it's like okay, so like, it's too suburban. You're moving to fucking Coal Valley.
Right.
Okay. Number two is that like one of the things he complains about is like the greed of like these young like tech millennials.
Right.
And like how egotistical they are and like how like egocentric they are. But it's like he also was like writing like this whole essay about why he's not living here anymore. Like anybody gives a fuck where this idiot lives.
Right.
It's the most egotistical thing in the world. Like I'm
totally.
sorry, dude. Like, and we've talked about this before. There is a goddamn art to like leaving a situation and not being a dick about it.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
and like I've seen this happen over and over again. Very close friends of mine who have moved to Portland, who moved to Boise, who moved to like Modesto or whatever. And like they salt the earth when they fucking leave, and like they give you this attitude like, hey, you know what? You would be fucking insane if you don't move to like Boise or Portland
right.
me. And you want to think like, you know what? That's fucking like just stop being a dick about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And go like it's fine. Like for once. Not for once, but like it happens every once in a while where somebody is like, hey, you know what? I had a great time in San Francisco and it was fantastic and it's time for me to move on. It's not like, they're like walking out the door and like fucking telling everybody that they're assholes.
Right.
And you know what?
You can either like just like walk away like a person with dignity and self-respect, or you can slam the door and like be like, I'm never coming back. It's like,
well, and also, like, I think the problem, like, initially when I first saw this article, I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, no one's gonna gravitate towards this.
Yeah.
And then it got an enormous amount of traction.
Yeah.
So and that's the kind of thing that pisses me off. And I think like the only traction that it really has is because he's saying, hey, all these young people in the mission are assholes, and people gravitate towards that. And because he's right. But they don't like realize is this guy was an asshole himself.
Exactly. Well, and I think that a lot of the traction too. I mean, like the fact that it's getting picked up by primarily like blogs and stuff like that is the millennials themselves going like, haha, look at this old man like moving out of the neighborhood and like bitching about it like we ruined it. Like I'm sure that like on some base level, like they probably take some pride in that, where it's like, you know what, you can't hack it, go to Coal Valley, big deal.
Right,
And,
exactly.
The whole Coal Valley thing is ridiculous too, because like, you know, if you want to go like gentrify like a neighborhood that needs it, like you can go to East Palo Alto or like Oakland or non-hipster parts of Oakland or anything anytime you want, and like and you will find neighborhoods exactly like San Francisco was in like 1993. So like the fact that you're going to Coal Valley completely negates everything you just said.
Well, that's like the other thing that I really like. We need to take a break here, but I one of the things I really hate about like the reaction to this like essay is like people I know who have moved to the East Bay who are just like, yeah, that's right. Like they're basically trying to validate their own like the fact that they moved out to the East Bay like years ago. It's like this is like a validation about how everything sucks in the Mission. It's like, yeah, well, you used to live here for a long time, and like, you know what? Like, I'm sorry, like the Mission is still like a really cool place to hang out. You just don't have to go to what is it, Werewolves and
Craftsmen and Wolves.
Craftsmen and Wolves. Like, yeah, like Craftsmen and Wolves sucks, and you don't have to go there if you don't want to. But like, you know what? Also, you don't have to do. You don't have to like walk around and fucking like bitch about every single person that you don't like. I mean, if I did that, I would never shut up.
Speaking of shutting up, you want to take a break?
Yeah, all right. You know what? I'm getting a little, getting a little agitated here. But you know what? I'm going to take a break. I'm going to have a burger, and I'll come back, and I'll have a lot more to say to all of you East Bay douchebags who like think that like.
Stay tuned, El Cerrito. We're coming for you.
We're coming for you. All right. This is SF Barkast. We'll be back. Out of here, fine.
Who cares?
All right, and we are back.
We are back.
At the Zeitgeist.
Indeed.
And do you want to tell about people what happened while we were gone?
Well, we were warned. We were given a stern warning that we're not supposed to be using recording devices.
Well, he said, like, is that a camera?
Well, no, he said, what is that? And I said, oh, it's just like a digital
said,
recorder.
That's the bulge in my pants.
I said, this sets off all the bombs we put in here.
Exactly. Oh, sorry. Like, these are the like the pipe bombs that we have.
And he said, we don't allow any photography or recording without permission. So, because we're gonna make so much money on this, and we got to give them a cut.
That's the kind of thing I hate about this place. It's where it's just like, it's a place where people can be free, but you can't take photos of anybody.
We're all rebels. We like to break the rules, but please don't break any rules.
It's like, don't take any photos of my tattoos because look, those are original artwork. Fuck you.
Sorry, he picked the wrong episode of this podcast to mess with.
Right, exactly. It's like,
we're already like angry at 2 or 3 things.
We have to somehow preserve the integrity of this place. Fuck you. Anyway, so one of the other things, we should probably wrap this whole thing up. I don't think anyone cares about what we're saying anymore, but like one of the things that bothered me about that essay, well, the main thing is that it got passed around by people who just like basically heard like the lead-in, which is like young millennials are douchebags, and no one's gonna like argue against that.
Pretty much nobody, yeah.
But also one of the things that it's just like his sort of like victim-like sort of attitude where it's like, oh well, I just can't stand like being around these people. It's like you don't have to.
Right.
Like
he's being driven out of the neighborhood. It's like you're not being driven. I mean, you can stay and ignore this as long as you want, but what you want to do is make a big scene out of it when you leave. So that
basically you're just like throwing a tantrum while you're walking out the door.
Right.
Like one of his problems was like, he hates like tech guys and like mommy bloggers, where it's like, hey, you know what? No one, by law, you don't have to read mommy blogs yet. So like if like somebody is like writing a blog about their kid and you don't like that, fuck you. Like who cares? Like don't read it. It's like that Louis C.K. joke where it's just like it drives him crazy that somebody's pissed off that somebody somewhere is having gay sex.
Right.
And it's like, hey,
someone's writing a mommy blog somewhere. Oh, that makes me so mad.
It has nothing to do with you. It's like, fucking just get over it. If two people want to go, if somebody wants to write a mommy blog or 2 people want to have gay sex, and it has nothing to do with you, you don't have to do it. It's not like they're doing it on your fucking lawn.
Right.
You know, that would be a different fucking story.
Well, and I do still think it's hilarious that that this guy's final destination is not out of the city of San Francisco, but instead is 20 blocks away, where it's where he's going to start a whole new I'm proud to be a Coal Valley resident. I had to move out of Mission because I got too full of millennials, but now I'm surrounded by people of my kind, which apparently are aged hippies and people that have lived there for 30 years.
Enjoy those fucking baby strollers. I wonder if he left out the part that he has kids now and then he's older, then that would be a huge omission. Because if you're moving to Coal Valley and Noe Valley are the land of the baby strollers.
Right.
So you're not going to go over there and find any punk clubs like you did in 1992. So just give it up.
Although you should go back and listen to our St. Patrick's Day Pukapalooza, where we go to Finnegan's Wake in beautiful Coal Valley. And from what I listened to, I think we had a good time there, but I don't remember any of it.
That was sloppy. That really was. I mean, I'm not gonna mince words here.
This.
Yeah, exactly. It was I was probably the sloppiest I've been. More sloppy than I am right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I was a real goddamn mess.
It's the fucking big dick in Boston was made more sense to people. All right, so I guess we should stop bitching about people who are leaving.
Exactly. Let's enjoy this place for what it is.
Let's not become one of them and just complain about everything, and then talk about how great it is to live in West Oakland and how awful their lives are now.
What would be horrible is if this episode got picked up by all the major blogs and and
that would be horrible.
Well, no, because then it would be this whole thing of and then there would be another podcast that complains about us, saying those guys they're just complaining to hear themselves complain about someone complaining.
Hey, podcasters, one hand washes the other. I'm looking at you, Harmon.
Exactly, and that's another thing. As long as we're airing grievances,
airing of grievances.
I seem to recall us mentioning Drew Harmon quite a bit on this podcast, and I listened to the most recent episode of Chucklepedia, and there was not one mention of our podcast in it. So how about a little, let's play ball, guys.
This is the thing. I feel and I've already floated this balloon in the past, but you and I, we will fight the Chucklepedia. There's two guys. There's Drew Harmon and Mr. Cotter.
Right.
Okay, Gabe Kaplan. So we will fight Drew Harmon and Gabe Kaplan anywhere, anytime, as long as it's 2 out of 3 falls, Greco-Roman wrestling style.
I believe Jim Cotter is a seasoned wrestler, actually. So
I believe he's a seasoned D-bag. Very seasoned, if I might add.
Oh boy, I'm regretting bringing any of this up now.
I'm just kidding, Jim. I love you, man. But so one hand washes the other. If any podcast wants to jump on our publicity parade, we'll both circle the drain together.
Hey, we can dole out hand jobs with the best of them.
Whoa.
I'm just saying quid pro quo.
Now that I've been drinking more, I'm getting madder and madder. I told you there's no recording back here. What's gonna happen when people come in with Google glasses?
Exactly. Yeah. They came from my digital recording device, and I said nothing.
Exactly. And then when they came from my Google glasses, there was no one to say nothing about.
We can march in unison with the tamale lady in that we have been wronged.
It's the people who run this place, they're really good at two things: serving beers and bitching about everything around them. You know?
As opposed to us who are good at drinking beers and also bitching about everything around them.
Well, I don't like competition, to be honest. So do you want to wrap this up?
Can you think of any Gone But Not Forgottens or any of our other segments that we barely do anymore?
Well, Dog or No Dog, we already touched upon.
This is true.
And you know what? what
And where you can
touch
eat,
upon it,
where
and
you-
it's still kind of ambiguous because there's a dog here, and they used to like be very against having dogs here. So
During
we'll-
the break, we had a couple of juicy cheeseburgers that were wonderful.
Yeah, the burgers here are great, and the chef out back is like very friendly, really nice.
Indeed.
And of course the beer garden is great back here, and their beer selection is amazing. So what would
Fantastic.
you say? Do you like this bar?
Oh God, yeah. In fact, I mean, like, especially like for the spring, when spring turns into summer, turns into early fall. This is the best place to be in. One of the best places to be in the whole city.
That's great. That's nice. I say this bar can suck a fucking dick because it is full of assholes, and I am sick of this bullshit. Every time I come here, some guy has to like kind of like puff up his chest. This is my thing, dude. Anybody who gets into any trouble at fucking Zeitgeist, just step to someone. Because they will back down in a fucking second. This place is full of shit, and I'm sick of being here, and I want to fucking leave. Anybody who fucking texts me and says, hey, it's a nice day out, let's go to Zeitgeist, I'm just going to tell them to go fuck themselves. Yeah, let's go to a place where I can use my fucking camera phone and not have to worry about some wannabe like motorcycle like bike gang guy telling me to shut up. Fuck you.
Wait, did I say I like this place? I meant I hate it.
Right. Well, you know what? This is entertainment, so we should have one person say one thing.
Exactly.
So you can say, hey, you know what? I kind of like this place, and I can say, you know what? This place can go suck its own dick.
We're like Siskel and Ebert, except we're both alive and they're both dead.
Right. Exactly. Hey, Al Qaeda. This is a place to go. Hey, I'm gonna put the fucking coordinates into my phone. You can like figure out where to go. Although you know when you blow this place up, no one's gonna know the difference because it looks like a shithole anyway.
But at least it doesn't have porta potties anymore.
Oh yeah, it doesn't have porta potties. All right,
All right, well, let's get the hell out of here then.
All right, so this is SF Barkast coming from the wonderful Zeitgeist. I'm Jeff Cleary.
I'm Andrew Louder.
And we'll see you next time.